Hello, my name is Miranda and welcome back to me. Yay, talking about books. This is the mid-year freakout tag created by someone who I can't remember. This tag has been around for so long, by now it's like not even a tag particularly anymore, it's just a set of questions that people answer at this kind of time in the year, normally a bit earlier than I'm doing it. And yeah, just a chance to check in, see how we're diddly doing, and talk about things. So that's what we're doing. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year, and this answer changes all the time, but I think right now I'm gonna say The Birthday Party by Laura Mavigny, and that is because I think it's the book that made me feel the most, and that I most admire for what it was doing, and I have a full review on it. I also mentioned it in my best books of the year so far video, which will either be up already or will just be about to go up after this one. Haven't decided yet. So yeah, you can hear all my thoughts about it, but it's a book that I read for the International Booker long list and it is just stupid good, and very scary, and I got really scared and also tired from reading it because it was so intense. Second question is the best sequel you've read so far this year, and I think the only sequel, well, I've read the Hunger Games trilogy, which is the only kind of series / sequel that I've read, and I guess Catching Fire is a sequel, and it's so good, so that counts, because it's a sequel. It's one of the only sequels I read this year and it absolutely bangs. I think what's interesting to me about Catching Fire is that there is so much like setup before they actually get into the Hunger Games. Like the actual games is like the last third of the book. There's so much like political dealings and complication. I love articulating things with my hands. Newsflash, The Hunger Games is good. Next question is new release that you haven't read yet but you want to. For me this is definitely, well, I mean there's many, but as ever, but for me it's probably Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang, because I'm just intrigued. I don't know if I'll like it. I don't know if I'll hate it. I think I'll probably like it more than I'll hate it, but it's one of those books where like it feels like it's been everywhere, like a couple of months ago at least when it first came out, and lots of people read it and had lots of opinions, and I can't resist a book that people either adore or hate. I'm just like, I need to know what side I fall on. Also I read Babel this year and I really liked it, so yeah, I'm intrigued to get to Yellowface. I'll probably listen to the audiobook at some point soon. Next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I think this is a toss-up between The Fraud by Zadie Smith, because I've never read any Zadie Smith. I really want to, and I feel like I'm gonna love her. And The Fraud especially sounds right up my street. Like it's historical fiction, that's all I know about it, but I'm very, very excited about that, and I have a proof. But also Peach Pit, edited by Molly Llewellyn and someone else who I can't remember, sorry, other editor. But yeah, I follow Moles on Instagram and we chat a bit. She's a good egg and I'm just really intrigued by Peach Pit, and I wanna get to it. I'm excited, and I need to pre-order it and I need to not forget to pre-order it, so hold me accountable to that. The next question is biggest disappointment. Again, I have two for this because I have two books that massively disappointed me earlier this year, that I read back to back, because I was in a bit of a slump and I was like, I need just books that I'm really gonna love, and so I read firstly The Emperor's Babe by Bernadine Evaristo, and also All the Birds Singing by Evie Wyld, and I can't find All the Birds Singing, it's around somewhere, and these two, I thought I was going to love them both because they are both authors that I absolutely adore. Like I've read Girl, Woman, Other and Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo, love them both, and I've read The Bassrock by Evie Wyld and I adored it, and I was convinced that All the Birds Singing was going to be brilliant, and Parts of these books were. I'm going to start with this one because I think this was more disappointing. This is about a kind of a teenage girl who lives in ancient Roman London, I think, or ancient Roman Britain. No, it's London. Okay, good. But she's of African descent, and it's kind of about like her journey growing up, various different things that happen, and it's told in verse. And I think what mostly annoyed me about this was the fact that it was told in verse didn't add anything, and a lot of the time it just felt like she was writing sentences and then just splitting them into lines arbitrarily, and it wouldn't have made any difference if she'd just written it in prose, and that frustrated me, and also because of that it moved on very quickly, like it jumped from thing to thing incredibly fast, and I was like, let me just like sit in one place for like half a second and figure out what's going on and sit in these feelings before you move on to something else. Yeah, didn't love it. The Emperor's Babe annoyed me from the get-go pretty much. Had some good moments, but All the Birds Singing had a bit more kind of potential for me, I think, but then it just didn't really go anywhere. So there's brilliant tension set up from the start. You start with this woman who is working on a sheep farm in Australia, and kind of creepy things start happening, but you're following her like in the present day when she is in her own farm, and very isolated. Her sheep keep dying, she doesn't know why, or being killed violently, and then you also follow her in the past when she's working on various sheep farms in Australia, and surrounded by kind of creepy threatening men. Other creepy things are happening. She's kind of being like chased, she's running away from something, but the timeline in the past, it goes backwards, so you gradually find out more of what's happened to her and what's kind of, you know, why she's running away. It really worked to start with when you didn't know what was happening, but that kind of like the reveals of like what she'd been through, because it was just like a week beforehand and then it'd be like, okay, now you know. It was like the tension just kind of disappeared really quickly, and it was like it just somehow that kind of like it wasn't like the tension sort of built up suddenly and then things were revealed or something went wrong or anything like that. It was like the tension started out really big and great, and I was like, this is terrifying, I need to know what's going on, and then it gradually peters out as you gradually learn more, and that was it really. I was like, it had a lot of potential, but I just think it kind of let itself down a bit, which was a real shame, because again, I think it could have been great and there were some really good moments in it. Those two were very disappointing for the same reason, and I read them right next to each other. Very sad. I'm still going to read more by both of those authors, but yeah, I just think those two didn't quite work for me. Next question is biggest surprise, and again I have two for this. I'll try not to waffle on so much, but the first one is Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. This was a surprise because I didn't like the first half, and then the second half really picked up for me. This is about a young woman, I think she's like 20-ish, 21, who is living in Ireland, in I think the outskirts of Belfast, and she starts a relationship with an older man who is a Protestant, she's Catholic, and the sort of tensions around that, and her being kind of straddling these two worlds gradually builds up. For the first half, I was incredibly bored because I didn't care about their relationship whatsoever. And while it was kind of like the setting up of it, I was like, I was so bored and I just didn't care. And then the second half really, really took me by surprise because it was more like, instead of focusing on their relationship, it then became more about the kind of the political implications of their relationship. Whereas in the first half, there kind of weren't any stakes and it was just all very dull and their relationship was dull, and I don't know, it would just didn't work for me in the first half, but then the second half I actually found really moving, and like, I don't know, just I couldn't really look away. Like it felt suddenly like it just gripped me out of nowhere, when I felt like actually there were like I understood where the stakes of their relationship were coming from, and like it kind of just all became a bit more heated, and yeah, I really enjoyed the second half of it. So that was a surprise. My second surprise was Wyld by Cheon Myeong-kwan, translated by Chi Kim, I think. This is another International Booker shortlisted book, and this was really polarising. All the kind of things that I was seeing about it were people either loved it or they hated it. People thought it was really misogynistic and violent, which it is in some ways, and all people thought it was great. I had no idea what I was going to think of it, but actually I ended up really enjoying this, and I'm really not sure why. Like I can't pinpoint why this kind of worked for me. I was just so interested in all of the different stories and like where they were going. I can't really say what I got out of it, or like what it was about necessarily, or like why it was written. And again, like the treatment of women in here is really, really dodgy at times. Like there's some really nasty stuff that happens. I was just intrigued the whole time, and it really kept me engaged, which, yeah, I don't know, it really surprised me, and I ended up not hating it, so that was nice. The next question is favourite new author, either debut or new to you, and I think this would have to be Julia Armfield, author of Our Wives Under the Sea, because that book is just so fresh and interesting and unlike anything else I've ever read, and I think she has a really like unique perspective and way of writing. I'm just really excited to see whatever she writes next. I'm pretty sure that Our Wives Under the Sea was her debut novel, and yeah, I'm just intrigued. Next question is newest fictional crush. As ever, this question, I say as ever, I've done this tag once. This question is kind of hard for me, don't really get fictional crushes, but also Peter from the Hunger Games, because I was reading it and I was like, this man is so, I don't know, he's so lovely. Here I am like, I don't get fictional crushes, and I'm like, this man, I love him. No, he's just a drama queen and hilarious, and I feel like the arc that he goes on throughout the books is great and made me very sad, and I just enjoyed reading about him. Basically, rereading The Hunger Games made me realise that anyone who is Team Gale still, what the fuck are you doing? I feel like I'm 13 again, and I love Peter. This is so weird to me. I'm like, I've regressed 10 years, but I love it. The next question is new favourite character, and for this it is every single character in this book, because I love them all so much, and yeah, they're just glorious and I love them. Next question is book that made you cry, and again I have two because I can't choose just one for anything. Firstly, this bad boy, Babel by R F Kuang. I don't think I actually like shed a tear, but I got very sad, and it hurt me, like, you know, like gut punch, stabbed me in the chest, ripped my sad juices out. I don't know, it made me sad, especially towards the end where it's just like, it feels like everything is going wrong and you're like, how is this gonna end in any way apart from just the world ending? Because that's what this feels like right now. It just feels like everything is going to shit and nothing will ever be okay again. Oof. The other book, I can't remember again if it actually made me cry or if I was just sad, but it did make me very sad, and that is While We Were Dreaming by Clemens Meyer. I still don't know how you pronounce that guy's name. Yeah, this is another international booker, book, and it's about a bunch of teenage boys / young men in Leipzig, kind of just before / following after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and how their lives change or don't change. And they're all kind of doing bad things, and bad things happen to them, and it's really freaking sad, dude. What makes While We Were Dreaming so sad is that you have the two kind of timelines of the boys when they're like, I don't know, maybe like 13 to 16, or even younger than that. Like it goes from when they're quite young, and then it sort of flips to when they're older, in their like late teens / early 20s. It doesn't specify necessarily, but the kind of difference between the young boys who are so innocent and hopeful and full of energy and life, and then what they become later on, is just heartbreaking. And a lot of the time those two like timelines are almost like merged. They kind of cross over, and the line between them becomes blurred, and it made me very sad. However, next question is book that made me happy, and once again, it's still Life by Sarah Winman, because again, the characters are lovely, wonderful things happen. I talked about this in my June wrap-up, so I'm not going to go into what it's about, but it's just a book that is full of joy. There's sad stuff in here too, but also it's just like, I don't know, just spending time with these characters who are all such like weird individuals, and it's just so joyful, and made me very happy. Next question is the most beautiful book you've bought this year. I haven't bought that many books this year. I have bought some, and I've been gifted some, but I think the most beautiful one is this one, A Ghost in the Throat, and this I bought from Charlotte from Low Fat Self-Esteem. When's your YouTube return coming, Charlotte? Give it to us, give the people what we want. But yeah, this bad boy, it's so beautiful. I don't even really know what it's about. Kind of autofiction, which I've never really read before, so that'll be interesting. Last question, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I don't like this question, because the answer is everything, ever, as always. I need to actually read stuff from my TBR, and books that I own. There are so many books, so many, but also you're not my real mum, and you can't tell me that I need to read anything at all. So there are no books that I need to read, because I'm gonna do what I like and read by whim, and depending on what my mood is, and maybe I won't read anything from my TBR, and that's okay. Also, you might be my real mum, but that still doesn't mean that you get to tell me what I have to read. Hi mum, if you're watching. And there you have it. That's the mid-year freakout tag. I have freaked out. I have talked about books that I've read, and books that I want to read, and other things. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you very soon.